everyone, I hope all of you can hear me. Hi everyone, once again, welcome to Learn for Exam. I am Atrya Roy, um, presently an IIFT Delhi student. Today we'll be talking about the IIFT exam, how to prepare for it, the overall strategy, and what you should follow while taking the exam. Now the exam is really near, very close, right? So we have around 2 more weeks, right? Before the exam, before we take the exam. So I'll be sharing with you all the strategy and also what was my strategy before I went into the hall to take the exam, so that you guys can have a proper outlook to how to take the exam. Okay, so first of all, IFT is it's a really nice college. It's a very nice college. You have one campus in Delhi, one campus at Calcutta. The third campus is coming up live on Kakinada, maybe from this year or maybe from the next. It's almost as this exam that we'll be taking is almost similar to CAT, so not that much of a difference. But yeah, the only thing that you need to back yourself up is the strategy part and the time management part. And also, a unique thing about IIFT is it's a pen paper test, right? It's not the test, the type of test that you'll be taking for other exams. They're web based, but this is a pen paper. So many people have that knack of scoring a bit more marks, 10 to 20% more marks in a pen paper test. So you have that advantage of being on the easiest side, because of IFT being a pen paper test. So let's start. Basically, last year there was a bit of confusion because the pattern changed a bit, right? However, this year the pattern is going to be almost the same. But yeah, the 2 or 3 minutes that you get before the start of the exam, please look at the exam paper, question paper. I mean, there are instructions given where you can see how many questions are coming from each section, the number of marks, which you will get for one correct answer, and the number of marks that will be deducted for a wrong answer. The number of questions in the exam hovers around 120, and the total marks is obviously 100. The cutoff depends year after year. Last year it was 35.50 for general. Last to last year it was somewhere around 48. So you can understand the difference between the cutoffs, and that totally depends upon the level of difficulty of the paper. Like last year, if you have taken the exam, RC, verbal, and DI were the most difficult part of the paper, and that's the reason why the overall cutoff went down by a very high amount. I'll definitely come to the section cutoffs, but that will be done after I discuss the strategy with you all. So I'll start with GK. Basically, last year there were 6 sections. We had GK, verbal ability, then we had reading comprehension, quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning, and data interpretation. Each section had a different number of questions, different number of the minimum. The negative marking was 1/3 of the marks that was allotted to a question, and all the sections had different cutoffs. Okay. So about GK, last year GK had seen some other questions rather than direct GK questions, which we know of. About let me tell you how. There were paragraphs, passages, and we had 4 options. Apart from which you need to select one option that is not actually factually correct. So for those questions, your power on GK need to be quite a lot. All right. Um, so apart from those questions, you have normal questions. You have questions on sports. You have questions on books and authors, on prize winners, specifically about Nobel prizes, peace prizes given by the UNO, or also prizes from the filmfare industry. So you need to keep a note on that as well. Apart from that, do good readings on sports. Look a bit of current affairs 2018, because IFT has that knack of giving you a few CA questions which people do not, are not that good at. Apart from that, a bit of history, IFT has given you one, two history questions based on history. You have questions on headquarters of organizations, logos of organizations. So you can understand that the questions are varied. It doesn't come from a single domain or as such. It comes from every domain, one, two questions each and everything. Last year, the cutoff was quite low, if I'm not wrong, 0.82, which was around three questions. If you get three questions correct, you clear the cutoff. So basically, your target should be getting around 4 to 5 questions correct. Since the cutoff is usually on the lower side, please do not, mark something randomly. This is something I would ask you to, because if you mark something randomly, not only you lose out on that plus 0.33, you also get a negative 0.17, which hurts your score that you have already received, right? So try to not get uh, those many guesses around in the GK section at least. Keep your logical brain open. Last year, what happened is, with me and a lot of students, there were questions, which were difficult to be answered if you do not have a proper domain knowledge about it. However, if you are logical, like can relate information, or can relate logos to company names. Like last year, there was a question on Japan Airlines, and there was only one logo that carried a sign of a plane. So these things, connecting these things. I know you might not have knowledge about Japan Airlines, but this is something that comes from your logical part. So even if it's GK, please make sure that your logical brain is still working. Okay? So a proper strategy for GK would be attempt somewhere around 5 to 6 and try to get all of them correct. You'll end up with 2 marks or 1.5. That's totally fine. The cutoff's never above that. If you're not that good at GK, I would suggest you please read some PDFs. You have been enrolled to some GK courses, I guess. Even if you have not, I definitely hope you are enrolled to some test series like IMSCL or Learn for Exam. So we also have PDFs as such, so you can always see that, look at that, to cover your GK, up. That will be all for general knowledge. Next, let's now come to verbal ability. Verbal ability is kind of scoring, and if you are good at vocabulary and grammar, it's definitely a cherry on top for you. So it's something that you can score a lot of marks in, because the questions are relatively easy than cat. Cat's verbal ability is totally different. You have parajumbles, you have critical reasoning, you have para summaries and everything. We do not have those kind of questions. We have questions. Last year, questions came from grammar, parts of speech. A lot of questions do come from vocabulary, so you need to keep a track of all those things. Apart from that, we also have questions jahan pe, we get crosswords to solve. So it's not only you need to know about the words, you also know about connecting words. You cannot connect the words together, it becomes difficult for you, right? uh, let me just clear out the strategy part, and then I'll come to the cutoff. Obviously, do not worry about that. Okay. So verbal, last year verbal was a bit difficult because of the words that came. They were really very. They were words which was not even heard of before. So people found it really difficult to take the verbal ability part scoring. However, if you are good at verbal, if you are good at vocabulary and grammar and parts of speech, all of those things, you can target a score somewhere around 11 to 12. If you are average at vocab and everything, target a score somewhere around 8 to 9. Now, IFT always had this knack of providing one easy section, one difficult section among verbal ability and reading comprehension, and among LRDI between logical reasoning and data interpretation. So verbal is easy, RC is on the difficult side, And on the other hand, if RC is easy, verbal ability is on the difficult side. Last year, though, it was an exception where both VA and RCA were on the difficult sides, and the cutoffs really went low. Now, let me talk about RCs, reading comprehension. In IFT, when you take the exam, if you have taken any mock or so, it's the most important section in the paper. Why? Because it's the most scoring section in the paper. We have long passages that's a trouble for students, but the questions are factual. So if you take a look at the questions first, then go to the passage, seeing these are the questions, I need this information, this information, this information. So you can readily go to that part of the passage, and you can mark that up. After marking that up, you can come back to the question, answer that up, and you are done. So four questions, or at most three, will be factual. At least three will be factual. I'm sorry, if not four. So those three questions which are factual are really easy to mark. The difference here from CAT is you don't have to apply those elimination techniques between close options. Right, in CAT you always eliminate two, and then between the remaining two you always get confused. This might be the right answer, or this might be the right answer, and you end up always choosing the wrong answer. But here we don't have that. Since the questions are factual, the answer is already present in the passage. You don't have to infer anything. Inference based questions are moreover somewhere around 10 to 20% in the entire RC paper. So you can leave them out if you're not good at inference questions. However, central idea of the passage, uh, those kind of questions, they're really easy. So if you are good at that, please do mark the answers and do not leave them. RC being the most easy section to score, I would say if it's an easy paper, try scoring somewhere around 14. Because really passages will be easy. They won't be based on art, literature, art, or something like that. They'll be easy passages, easily comprehensible passages. Right? You don't get those philosophical passages as such. So they are really easy. Easier paper 14 marks, average paper somewhere around 11. And if it's a difficult paper, which we had last year, target somewhere around 9, not more than that, because if you target more, you'll end up losing quite a bit of time because you need to read a lot, right? Because the RCs are long. So since we only have 2 hours to crack the exam, it's always better to save as much time as possible, because at the end we need to maximize our marks. And I'll come to that part where marks is the most important thing to get you an admission in the college. Okay, next up, RC is done. Let's now come to quants, and quants being my favorite subject, I can give you lots of inputs in that. So about quants, another thing. So the questions are based out of arithmetic and algebra. You have around 70 to 80% questions just coming from these two sections: normal counting, arithmetic, and algebra. The arithmetic questions, however, are very long. So if you have seen a paper in the past, you can see that the questions are really long, and you'll end up wasting a minute just to read the question. So we always tell people that it's more of an RC rather than a quant paper, because the questions are like 2 paragraph questions. You end up losing a quite of time. However, for quants, I would suggest you please look at questions which are based on functions, set theory, a bit of triangles. Then you can look for questions on series means progressions, APGP, those kind of questions. IIFT has that knack of giving the ball drop question. You drop a ball from certain height, it jumps up to certain ratio and then comes to rest. Find the total distance uh, between the start point and the end point, right? So you need to take care of that as well. Some other questions, basic progression questions, when you need to put in values of when and such questions on functions. Please make very sure that you are having a proper base on arithmetic, because that will be a scoring point for you. uh, yes. So pointers You need to take care about reading questions if the questions are long. You need to, if the questions are long, just take a time, leave them out as of such in the first phase. uh, Finish off the paper, the easier questions first, and then if you have time left, go to the longer questions and solve them. It's not always that the long questions are easy to tackle or difficult to tackle. We cannot categorize as such, right? If it's a difficult paper, I would suggest score somewhere around 8 to 9 marks. If it's a easier paper, you can target somewhere around 13 to 14. Personally, I have seen people scoring as high as 18 out of 20 in the paper. So it is answerable. The paper is answerable. However, you might end up losing a bit of time while tackling the questions which are long and a lot of information is given. Also, just this, I'll tell you this: probability and PNC ball boxes questions, they are a bit favorite for IFT. Do try them out. We have three bags containing two yellow, two red. Then the second bag containing one black, two yellow. Like these questions, they are personal favorites of IFT. Please do keep a check on them. Now let's come to LR and DI. Now, point is, IFT has this knack, and last year too, it had the same knack. It did the same thing. Out of these two sections, one will be definitely easy, and one will be definitely difficult. Now, it's all. This is also subjective. We cannot just say it right now because I have not designed the paper. Have I? Uh, but yeah, from the last year trends, we can say if LR is easy, DI will be difficult. If DI is easy, LR will be difficult, and the pattern changes, and the thing changes. So if this year LR is difficult, next year LR will be easy. So it's something that it's something that is subjective though. And it totally depends on the day of the paper. We do not know how will the paper go, how what type of questions will be asked. However, coming to the LR section, I would say puzzles are easier. They have somewhere around 3 to 4 questions. Some sets will also have 2 questions. The sets which are having 2 questions are relatively easier to solve. Do not try questions which are based on games and tournaments, proper games and tournaments theory, because they usually take a lot of time to solve. Apart from that, if you are thinking to score a lot in LR, I would suggest you solve the easier puzzles first, then go to the DI paper. Finish off the DI paper. If the DI paper is difficult, do a few questions. Come back to LR and attempt at least 90% of the questions. Because if it's an easy paper, attempting 90% within the stipulated time is nowhere out of the box, right? And if you attempt those many questions with 85%, 90% accuracy, I definitely know that you can score a lot. So last year the LR part was easy, and people scored somewhere around 12, 13, 14 as well in this section, which boosted their scores a lot. Now see, last year the cutoffs were 35, the cutoff was 35.50 for general category. If you score 12, 13 in one section, you are already scoring one third of the paper, and that too in one section, right? So you need to just take care of that. Within the first minute, you should understand that the LR part is easier or the DI part is easier. Whichever part is easier, try to attempt 90% questions from that part. And the remaining part, the other part, I would suggest you just try to get somewhere around 4 to 5 marks. That will be all for you. Previous to previous year, the LR and DI had the same cutoff. LR and DI was combined, had the same cutoff. However, last year both LR and DI had different cutoffs because they were treated as different sections. Now let's come to data interpretation. Now data interpretation, we all know IFT gives you lot intensive sets, not in terms of logic, but in terms of calculation. So there will be questions where you need to calculate, add up 10 numbers, then divide it by 10 or something, find out average of four things, 4 into 4 matrix. You need to calculate 16 odd terms. That really becomes difficult for people, at least in that pressure scenario, because there are lots you need to, there are lots for you in line, right? So I would suggest you go for the questions which has a little less data, right? Go for the questions जिनके जहाँ पे data थोड़ा सा कम है, because they are rather easier to solve. However, even in questions which are difficult, like if you have questions which are really calculation intensive sets, among the four questions, there will be at least that one question which won't require that much amount of time. Maybe it's just requiring you, it's just asking you to add four numbers and divide it by four, average of four numbers. So keep your eyes open, make sure you do not lose on the easier questions. Even if the set is difficult, it's really easy. It's really, we have seen it in the past. We have seen questions, that one or two question in the set, in the difficult set, which are very easy to solve, for which you do not need to logically deduce something, for which you do not need to spend 2 to 3 minutes on calculation. So keep your eyes open. A better score in DI would be somewhere around 9 to 10 if it's an easy paper. By easy, I mean not that time consuming, because DI, unlike last year, basically comes not logical, right? So it's just adding, subtracting, multiplication, and division. That's all, and approximation. Obviously, you need to keep an eye out for approximation, because at times the options are really very close. So please do not use random approximations in questions where we cannot use them. You will end up calculating for 2 minutes, and then be confused because you'll have two very close options. So please do not do that. In an easy paper, try targeting around 9, 10, 11, that kind of marks. In a difficult paper, the marks will automatically drop down to 3, 4, or even as low as 2. Last year, the cutoff was 0.25, which was really low. And it was because I was just doing a paper analysis, and I saw that there were only 4 questions that were attemptable in the entire DI part. So it's really difficult to attempt a lot of questions in DI if it's both logical and calculation intensive, which was the scenario last year. However, if you divide properly, and if we say that the paper is fairly easy, which has a cutoff somewhere around 45, proper marks division should be 1 for GK, somewhere around 9 to 10 for verbal, similarly 11 to 12 for RCs. For quant, it should be somewhere around 11 to 12 as well. LR and DI combining both, I would say get somewhere around 16 to 17 marks. Right? You'll clear the cutoff easily, and just keep one thing in mind, guys. In IIFT, if you score more than the cutoff by a substantial amount, your chances of getting selected at the college becomes really very high, because we hope that they have somewhere around 55% weightage to the IIFT's exam score. So the more you score, the better your chances become getting into the college, right? So that will be all for as far as the strategy part is concerned. I saw a lot of questions that you guys posted. I'll be happy to take all those questions now. So you can type in your questions. I'll be really happy to take them. Anything regarding college, anything regarding preparation, you can shoot. Important GK topics would be sports, books and authors. Then we have headquarters, logos, taglines of companies, and awards. Yeah. Now, clearing vocab totally depends upon your vocab power. Word Power Made Easy is a good book, for vocab. But since we do not have that much time, I wouldn't suggest that book to you. However, And IFT Kolkata and Delhi doesn't have that much difference, you know. It's only that in time of placements they need to come in to our campus. Rest apart from that, everything remains the same. Chapters to focus in quantitative aptitude would be arithmetic, all chapters of arithmetic, algebra, specifically quadratic equation, function, and linear algebra, and also you need to see a bit of questions on circles and PNC probability. But functions and series and progressions as well. These chapters are really important as far as the QA part is concerned. Sectional cutoffs, you can go to any website and check for the sectional cutoff. Varies year to year, cannot be that's subjective, depends upon the level of paper. Uh, No, not really important to know the etymology of for every vocab word. You know, that's not important. How much geometry can we expect in the paper? It has somewhere around 3-4 questions every year. Kakinada campus yet is I don't know. They might open it from this year. Might open from this year. If not, then the next year. Academics are not considered while your selection in the IIFT GDPI rounds. So it's only based on your score, and then you have to form a CV which contains questions made from their end. You just need to fill in the CV and send it to the college. Best IFT mocks to practice. I would suggest you please, before taking the test, at least see 4 or 5 real IFT papers. IFT papers are readily available on the internet. You can just search them out and see the questions. That's all. Please see the question papers. You'll get a feel how the question, what are the type of questions, how the questions are and everything. How to prepare GK for 3 days? Now this is really very difficult to comment. You need to work a lot. The topics that I told you, just do a lot on those. Everyone who clears the cutoff gets a call. Yes, everyone who clears, obviously that's what cutoff means, right? So if you clear the cutoff, you get a call, then you sit for the GTPA rounds, and if you clear that, you come to the college. Watches are allowed in the exam. Yes, you don't have to worry about that. Section cutoffs, please, you can check any website for that. Section cutoffs here depend year to year, and that's why it really becomes difficult to comment on that. Now, attempting the paper efficiently. Now, this is a good question. How to attempt the paper efficiently? Now, basically, you should target your strong areas first. I've always told you. Now, since it's a pen and paper test, you don't have to clear one section and then go to the next section, which is true for CAT, right? It's better that you target your strong areas. And just clear up the sectional cutoffs. You have an idea of how the sectional cutoffs will be seeing the paper. If it's a difficult paper, the sectional cutoffs obviously will go down. So score more on the easier parts and the parts where you are strong at. Just clear the section cutoffs, 1-2 more marks than the cutoffs. That would really be good for you. Guarantees, if you score more than the cutoff, you are definitely getting a call for the GDPI round. GK is static dominant. Obviously, GK is more static dominant. Test center tips and precautions. Please do not cheat. If you think it's a pen paper test, people are sitting beside you and you can cheat. Please do not think that. The IFT is very stringent for these things. On these things, if you cheat, your paper stands cancelled. You cannot ask for a second paper. You cannot say him sorry and just give me the paper back. That doesn't work. So don't become a bit more serious. Become more mature while taking the paper. Do not cheat. Logos of companies. We have questions coming on logos of companies. Yes, questions on CEOs of companies, taglines of companies, brand ambassador of companies. You need to take care of those. And it's definitely possible for an average student to crack IIFT, and this goes true for every exam that you take. You just have to you have to have a proper strategy. You have to have that bit of knowledge that's required, and a proper strategy, and that knowledge that you have, you'll steer through the exam without any difficulty. That won't be difficult. IIFT is easier difficult than NMAT? Definitely on the difficult side. Definitely on the difficult side, because the questions are difficult. Cutoffs go higher if you compare on a similar scale. So yeah, definitely more difficult, much more difficult exam than NMAT. Chances for dropouts, that depends upon the candidate. LR topics, we basically have questions on puzzles. Then you have direction, sense, blood relations, these questions. Easy questions, but more puzzle focused questions. Even if it's a direction sense question, it'll be in kind of a puzzle, right? For verbal, I would suggest go through vocab. And it's not something that you can prepare within a week. So you need to understand vocab has a very strong base, and you need to build upon that. If you think that you can do vocab in a week, I'm sorry for that. But however, you can do about with the root words and all, and might get an edge than others who are weak at vocab on something. Test day procedure. Test day procedure, I would say nothing much. It's easy. You don't have to worry about those about as of now. Just prepare well, take the exam well. The procedures are fine and in place. You don't have any problem. Important topics for quant section, I told you: function, series, and progress series. Then you have a quadratic equation, linear algebra. Then you whole of arithmetic, a bit of PNC. Geometry, if you are good at geometry, you can get good questions and really enjoy solving geometry questions. About the minimum criteria of how much should I get in 10th, 12th, and everything, you can look at the brochure that has been updated at the website. It contains all information. You can look at it. It has every information. You won't be having any issues with that. After vocabulary video, we can keep a check on the channel. Keep a check on the channel. We have lots and lots of good videos coming in. You can always come here, see. I hope you like the content. Should we attempt more questions to maximize score? Yeah, obviously. If you have that edge over others in knowledge terms, why won't you attempt more questions? The only thing I would stop you from doing is take guesses. Please do not take guesses in the exam, because the negatives that you get are very hard. The hits that you receive are very hard. I don't want you to have that from your end, right? So please don't, please don't guess a lot. Sorry, Prajwal, I didn't see your text. Could you please text me once more? Cutoffs are reserved categories. Everything's given in the everything depends upon the paper. For last year papers, you can go to any website. You'll get information about the cutoffs. And good attempt also depends upon the level of difficulty of the paper. You can understand, right? When the cutoff drops by 33%, how difficult the paper is. So you need to understand that, gauge that on that test day itself. Verbal ability, important topics. Please do grammar very nicely. Please do um, parts of speech. Last year we had lots of questions on parts of speech. Those questions, they're important. Also vocab based questions. Last year cutoff was 35.50 for general. IFT is my dream college prepare. Okay. Not a good approach. Definitely not a good approach. Even if it's a dream college, you should not leave out on CAT, because CAT gives you a lot of opportunities. Please do take that. Please focus on CAT as well, and do not stop preparing for the exam. Vocats does not matter as of such, but you get a talking point at the GDPR. IFT Kakinada campus is yet not live, so no information on that, please. Okay, guys, then that will be all from my end. I hope you really enjoyed the session, learned a lot about the strategy part, and I hope now you can take the exam without any difficulty, right? So please take care, prepare very well for the exam, and I hope to see a lot of you people in my campus next year. It's a really nice campus, so wonderful environment, and you always have a person to look after you, right? So please prepare well for the exam and take care of yourself. That'll be all from my end. For any information that you need, you can always contact us. We have a Facebook page that's running. Uh, you can comment on our videos. We'll be looking. We'll be trying to answer. We'll try to answer that. And for everything else, you can always reach out to us with the email IDs and the phone numbers that we have in our pages, right? So, okay, that will be all from my end. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining in, and I really hope I'll see a lot of people. I'll see a lot of people in my college next year. Bye bye, guys. Take care. Bye bye. Good night.